morning of September 4th, 2004, many students, teachers, and parents gathered on the playground of School 1 in Beslan, Russia, to celebrate the start of the Russian school year, commonly referred to as First Bell or Knowledge Day. They were dressed in their best attire. Little girls were in spotless white ruffled pinafores, and boys in freshly pressed dress shirts, buttoned all the way up to the collar. Because of the festivities scheduled for that day, there were many more people in the school than what is considered normal for any given school day. There was all sorts of happiness and excitement as the children attended ceremonies hosted by the school. However, shortly after, around 9 a.m., their excitement and happiness would soon turn to horror, leaving 444 people dead, 186 of those children, and becoming the deadliest mass school shooting in history. Sadly, none of the children seen in this photograph made it out alive. On the morning of September 4th, 2004, many students, teachers, and parents. At approximately 9:11 a.m. local time, a group of heavily armed Islamic guerrillas arrived at Beslan from an encampment east of North Ostia and west of Camp Chechnya. Upon arriving at the school, they began to shoot into the air to force the students, teachers, and parents from the playgrounds into the school building. During this frenzy, several people were able to escape and inform the local authorities of what was happening. With the terrorists seizing the school building shortly thereafter, an estimated 1,100 people were moved into the school gym and became hostages of the terrorists. As the police, along with other military armed forces, began to show up and set a perimeter around the school, the terrorists began to fashion and set mines with tripwires in the gym to further thwart any escape attempts from the inside or rescue attempts from the outside. To further reduce any rescue attempts, the terrorists threatened to kill 50 hostages for every one of their members killed by armed forces. In addition, they threatened to kill 20 hostages for every gunman that was injured by the armed forces. Because of those threats, Russia decided to use negotiations rather than force as a way to end the siege. This still photo in this slide is from actual video inside the sports hall of the school, showing one of the guerrillas walking down the hallway between the hostages. Day 2 of the negotiations were unsuccessful as the terrorists still refused food or water to the hostages. The conditions in the gym were almost unbearable, and many children became weak due to lack of nutrients, water, and the heat inside of the gym. Many children, as well as adults, began to faint. As the day wore on, the stressed and sleep-deprived terrorists began to threaten the mothers of the crying children if the crying did not stop. On day 3 of the siege, at 1 p.m. local time, 4 medical workers were allowed to remove around 20 bodies from the grounds and bring the corpse of the terrorists to the school. However, when the medical workers approached the school, an explosion was heard inside of the gym. At approximately 1:05 p.m., a fire broke out on the roof of the sports hall, collapsing the roof and killing approximately 160 people. Parts of the sport hall were demolished during the fire, allowing some hostages an escape to freedom. However, as the hostages began fleeing through the fallen walls, the terrorists began to shoot at the hostages. When this occurred, the armed forces began to storm the building, with many being killed inside of the crossfire. Assault forces were brought to use against the terrorists, which included equipment such as the T-72 tank, the BTR-80, and the Mi-24 attack helicopter. Shmel rockets, an explosive used inside of the Russian military, were also used to breach the school. Around 2 hours later, Russian armed forces had secured and controlled most of the school, and all but one of the terrorists had been killed. The surviving terrorist was taken into custody. However, the injuries and loss of life was already catastrophic at this point. After the siege was over, the medical facilities in Beslan were not equipped to deal with the injured, and they were sent to another city. Many of the injured people died before they could be transported. Several days after those funerals, a mass burial of 120 people was done at the local cemetery, which was actually way too small to hold that many dead. Approximately 200 people were missing and presumed to be burned in the fire of the sports hall. With an attack so brutal, one must wonder, who were these people that could attack and kill children so viciously? To answer that, we must first understand the background between Chechnya and Russia. For many years, Chechen rebels had been fighting Russians for control of the Chechnya Republic, which had been dominated by Russia from around 1924 to around 1991. During this time, the Soviet Union was a communist nation, and Chechnya was under their communist rule. After the Soviet Union broke apart, the new Russian Federation was formed, and Chechnya became a part of it. The Chechen separatists fought again with Russian forces, but failed to gain independence from the Russian Federation. However, during their first war in 1994 and 1996, Islam became a more prominent role in Chechen society. In addition, jihadi fighters joined the war in 1995 to fight for Chechnya. These separatists believed that Chechnya should be its own independent, separate state rather than bound by the Russian Federation. While many Chechens supported Chechnya being a separate state, they wanted to achieve it through political means. However, many Chechens decided to use terrorist tactics to support their agenda of Chechnya becoming a separate state. The group of terrorists that took over the Beslan school were part of the Riyad al-Sakahin, an Islamic group of separatists from the Republic of Chechnya. One of these terrorists gained control of the school. They issued demands that the war be immediately stopped in Chechnya and Russian forces to be withdrawn immediately. However, Putin had refused to declare Chechnya as an independent state and has maintained Russia's military occupation of Chechnya. Shamil Basayev, leader of the Chechen separatist movement, claimed responsibility for the Beslan school attack. Basayev acquired a prominent position in Chechnya, where he underwent major radicalization/Islamization during the first war between Russia and Chechnya. One key motivator to Basayev adopting radical Islam and political Islam is the financial and human resources he could gain if he committed to their ideologies. By adopting these ideologies, it brought him money, recruits, and international contacts that he would have never had before. However, the question still remains as to why terrorists targeted children to get the war between Russia and Chechnya stopped. Why kill innocent children to push a political agenda to stop a war and declare Chechnya an independent state? Well, the Chechen separatists knew that the more shocking of a terrorist attack they carried out, the more media attention would be placed on it that would then help to push their political agenda. And the Beslan school siege was noted to be the first terrorism attack carried out by Chechens, specifically targeting children. The targeting and killing of young children is obviously a repulsive form of violence to the general public. And the separatists knew that doing something on this scale would cause people to stop and watch, particularly the Russians. However, it is worth noting that Chechen children have been the victims of terrorism since the Chechen War first began in 1994. So one would think they would not subject children to any more such atrocities. Although the siege of Beslan school claimed many lives of both adults and children, to the dismay of the Chechen separatists, it did not stop Russia's military occupation of Chechnya. Basayev even considered the act extreme, and sources close to him said that after the Beslan school siege, he, quote, said, swore off terrorist attacks because he believed that if the Russians could not be swayed by the deaths of hundreds of children, they would not be swayed by anything, end quote.